all those issues that matter to me matter to the NDP. But if you're thinking about running for office, my advice is do it. Oh gosh, I don't know if my work's making a difference to that young person. It is. My name is Janis Irwin. I'm the MLA for Edmonton Highlands-Norwood, and I'm also the critic for housing. Why politics? Oh gosh, well for me, I've always been interested in politics. I was a social studies teacher in rural Alberta. I've always been engaged in, issues around politics. And for me, I moved to Edmonton. I took a job that was supposed to be temporary, and I was supposed to go back to my rural school division. Long story short, I ended up getting involved with the NDP. I started volunteering. One thing led to another, and I ended up running over 10 years ago, in fact, and brought me up to the modern day when I was just re-elected last year as the MLA for Edmonton Highlands-Norwood. NDP because, I found a party whose values aligned with mine, issues around social justice, around housing, around healthcare, around education, all those issues that matter to me matter to the NDP. Oh, for my first career. Yeah, so, I love the idea of being a teacher, and like I said, I love social studies. I love that whole realm, and for me, teaching was something that I thought I would do forever. It was kind of a series of life events, a twist, you might say, that led me to politics, because I planned on being a teacher, for my whole career. But as we know, plans don't always work out as we thought, and that's what brings me here. What do MLAs do? Oh my goodness. Well, right now it changes certainly depending on the time of year. Right now, we're not in the legislature, so that gives us a chance to do a lot of work out in the community, out in the neighborhoods we represent, right? So I'll spend a lot of time meeting with folks coming to my constituency office, meeting them out in the community. But when we're in the legislature, which will be back in October, we spend a lot of time, debating bills, in committees, introducing amendments, trying to make the legislation of this government a little less bad. Not always, sometimes we agree with their legislation, but, so it really, I get asked a lot, like, what's a typical day like for an MLA? And I can honestly say they're not all the same. Every day is different, absolutely. Two things I like, I would say probably the number one is just being able to interact with folks all the time, right? Whether it's online, on social media, whether it's in person, out in the community, whatever it might be. Just those kinds of interactions, and being able to, maybe similarly, my second point would be just being, I represent such a diverse, vibrant area of Edmonton. And so I get to go to a lot of really cool events and festivals and meetings, and just, there's people I meet every single day that I may not have ever encountered if I weren't in this job. Oh gosh, good question. One thing I'd like to change. Well, like I said earlier, it certainly can be hard on the heart at times being in opposition. And, right now, for instance, sorry to get super partisan on you, but kind of have to in my job. Right now, for instance, we are 3 years out of an election. So, when the UCP are doing things that a lot of my constituents and a lot of Albertans find damaging, for instance, the chaos in healthcare, it's really hard it's really hard to tell people, like, well, there's not an election coming up. Well, we're not going to be able to change the government right away. And so, it's not necessarily, I think, something that I would ever be able to change, but just, it would be nice if we were able to work more, closely with this government to do the right things for Albertans. But as we see from this government, they're not willing to do what's right for Albertans. So if I could change that, if I could make things more collaborative, right? If I could change the government, obviously that would be number one, but I am a realist, right? So no, some days are hard, I'm not gonna lie. Because of who I am, I'm outspoken on a lot of issues. I'm openly a member of the 2S LGBTQ plus community. I look how I look. So, there are days where it's a little bit harder than others because I get hate, and I get, I get people who aren't the kindest. But I also get a lot of people who thank me for the work that we do. And for me, what's most important is trying to be the voice for folks whose voices haven't been heard historically or currently. And so doing all I can to amplify those voices both inside and outside the legislature. Favorite moment at the legislature? Wow. I don't know. This is probably not a good, necessarily a favorite, but, I think about times that have been really meaningful. There's a lot of things that happen in the legislature that are pretty hard to take as an opposition MLA, right? I've only ever been an opposition MLA. I was elected in 2019, re-elected in 2023, both times not in government. So it can be pretty frustrating, feeling like you're banging your head against the wall. because we're in the minority, right? We can't stop their legislation, but we can do all we can. And so I reflect on, a favorite moment is when the UCP introduced legislation in 2019 called Bill 8, which effectively made it more difficult for young people to access GSAs, gay straight alliances, in schools. And why I reflect on that as kind of a remarkable memory in my mind is because we heard from so many teachers, students, parents, people from all across Alberta who talked about why, safe spaces for kids in schools mattered, right? And so we had this opportunity to really share and amplify a lot of those stories. And while we weren't successful in stopping that legislation, we filibustered, so we tried to debate as long as we could. We tried every tactic we had in our legislative toolbox to try to stop this government. We couldn't, but we did all we can, and I think it was really, remarkable in the sense that, so many Albertans spoke out, and, while it was hard on the heart, I felt like we had done all we could. I don't know if I can speak to one public interaction, but, I'm really fortunate that I get a lot of people coming up to me and saying kind things, right? Saying that they're grateful for me, those sorts of things. And I always try to say, I'm just a politician. I'm not a hero. I'm not a frontline healthcare worker or someone like that who's doing amazing work every single day without any sort of accolades. But just something that just happened on the weekend that sticks out in my mind is I was at the Edmonton Pride Festival with a group of folks, and we were just, chatting, taking pictures, that kind of thing. And a young person came up to me and handed me a note. And I kind of glanced at it. I said, thanks. And they ran off right away. And then when I looked more closely at the note, it said something like, hey, I have social anxiety, but I just wanted you to know, how much your work means to me, or something to that effect. And I just thought, wow, that's pretty cool, because not because of the impact it had on me, although that's pretty huge. Just the fact that that young person who clearly said that they have social anxiety was still willing to come up and write me a note and give it to me, right? So stuff like that, right? When you feel like, oh gosh, I don't know if my work's making a difference to that young person, it is. Love that. To an aspiring politician, I would certainly say, and I get a lot of young people especially coming up to me and saying, they're interested in getting involved in politics. Maybe not running for office, but at least getting involved in politics. I always say, do it. You're not too young to get involved. I have a 13-year-old who volunteers with us, who's always out doing all he can to support the NDP, right? So those sorts of opportunities exist. But if you're thinking about running for office, my advice is do it. Let's talk. There's so many ways that you can get involved. You might not think about politics right away, but down the road, we need more people who care, and more people who, represent diverse views in politics. Absolutely. Oh gosh, next 10 years. Well, politics is a bit of a fickle beast. So, I probably don't have 10-year plans right now, because we kind of work in 4-year cycles, although that would be something that we'd love to change too. I'm lucky that I represent an area where there is traditionally a lot of NDP support. So I hope, knock on wood, that I'll still have a job as an MLA in 10 years. So I don't have any specific, anything specific I can say about my riding, but I can say specifically about plans for the province. Our plan is to form government in 2027 so that we can take action on the issues that I hear from folks in my riding every single day: healthcare, housing, education, right? These are the issues that are top of mind for folks, and they need to know that there's folks like us in the NDP who want to be their government and who want to take action on those issues.